Jessica Sacco. I'm the Associate Director for the California STEM Network, a project of Children Now, and I'm the moderator for this event. I would like to welcome you to Building Routines Through Online Discussions with KQED Learn. During this session, you are encouraged to ask questions and share any comments in the chat. Everyone will be able to see the session chat today, and I'll be moderating it to help our presenter field your questions. You'll see a link to the session's presentation at the very top of the chat. It's been pinned right up there at the top. And feel free to follow along separately, or as I had mentioned previously, double click on the screen that shows the slide deck in order to maximize the view of that screen. I do have some special instructions. Again, as I mentioned, our virtual platform allows a limited number of people to share their video and audio at one time. You can access the blue button on the upper right-hand corner of your screen to be added to the queue. If you want to ask any clarifying questions, share your screen, or as I said, simply be here at the table with us. And you will automatically, oh, I already said that one. And so now I'm excited to introduce you to our presenter, Alana Somasundaram, who will be leading your presentation today. Welcome.
Thank you, Jessica, and welcome everyone. I am Alana from KQED, and I want to just give a quick disclaimer that this is geared toward middle and high school educators. So we'll be talking a little bit about a tool that's free, completely free, but it's open to middle and high school students and teachers. So if you are an elementary educator, you might want to pop into a different session. Obviously, we'd love to have you here, but I don't want you to have to hear about a tool that you can't use with your students. So welcome, everyone. You can access these slides using that bit.ly or, like Jessica said, the link at the top of the screen, and we'd love it if you would sign in whenever you get a chance. And you have access to these slides, so you'll have access to our email address, and our Twitter handle is there as well. And we'll get started. So I'm Alana from KQED, like I said, and for those of you who maybe are based in Northern California, you may have listened to KQED on the radio, but we also have an education team that is dedicated to supporting teachers and students build media literacy skills. And we do that in a variety of ways. One of the ways that we do that is through our academic online space for middle and high school students to practice civil dialogue and media making, and that's KQED Learn. And we also have KQED Teach, which is a place where teachers can build the skills that they need to support their students in building those skills themselves. And our resources are all 100% free all the time, not just during the pandemic, and we prioritize student safety and privacy. So we're not collecting any sort of student data, and Learn is a student-only site. So you'll notice that if you don't have a login, you won't be able to see any student responses. So there's probably a lot that you're thinking about right now. I'm wondering, like, what's rising to the top for you all? I saw in the session event chat that some people are starting as early as tomorrow. What are you all thinking about right now? So just take a moment to either, I don't know, if you're in our little inside room, you can unmute yourself, but if not, you can just drop it in the chat. I'd love to hear from you all. Connecting with classroom teachers, how to start the year when not in person. I heard that come up during the opening panel. Schedule, accountability. Right, there's so many tools out there. Like, how do you pick the ones that are going to be most effective? And probably a million other thoughts. Reaching students, building community, which is kind of the theme of today. You can keep kind of putting those thoughts in the chat as they come up. And the priorities may shift as we move throughout today, and that's okay too. Supporting families is huge too. So while these times are really challenging for us, they're especially challenging for many of the students we serve, we heard this morning. And supporting our students emotionally and allowing them to develop their own social emotional skills means building opportunities to connect with each other, which some of you alluded to is going to be hard to do if we're remote. But there are ways to build opportunities to connect with each other. And this can develop their ability to empathize and also manage their own likely turbulent emotions right now. So this is a ghost hug because we can't actually hug anybody right now. So we are here to talk about building in routines. And one of those routines that I want to really discuss is student discourse and student discussion. Because we know that supporting our students emotionally is of utmost importance, but supporting our students to be able to live out their hopes and dreams for the future also means giving them opportunities to grow academically. And so we think of all of these things coming together: community building, supporting students' social emotional learning, but also allowing students to access rigorous academic content. And the combination of all these things seems to lead us to students in discussion with each other around academic issues. So peer academic discourse is one of these powerful tools that gets at all of these components that are important for learning, especially at the beginning of school year, especially when we are not going to be physically together in the same space. But doing that, student discussions when you're not in the same physical space is difficult. But we developed this platform a few years ago to help with this, not knowing that we're going to have a pandemic, 3 years later. But KQED Learn is a space for student discussion around academic and civic issues. And it was developed as an online space. And so KQED Learn is a place where students only are allowed to post. They watch a video on a civic issue, academic issue. A lot of them are around socio-scientific issues. And then they practice their skills in evidence-based writing in discussion posts. And they also have an opportunity to make media as well. And so I'll dig into one of our discussions so that you get a chance to see what these look like. One thing to note is for fans of KQED, Deep Look is our #1 series. It's my favorite because it is a really awesome deep look into, which means super, super microscopic look at an animal, or they looked at the coronavirus. So getting really that close-up look at something in nature. So we're going to look at one of these videos now, which is around porcupines and how they've inspired a medical device, actually. So as you watch, you might want to think about these things. How does this or doesn't this relate to your class content, things that you're hoping to do with students this year? What supports would your students need to digest the information in this video? So thinking about there might be a lot of information in the video. How would you want your students to process it? And then what would you want your students to do after consuming this short video? What are some things that you would want them to kind of extend their learning? So we're gonna try this out and watch this video. And then I'll show you on KQED Learn what the discussion site looks like.
Razor sharp, designed to impale, and next to impossible to remove. The fearsome creature that wields these weapons? Aw, look at that face. A North American porcupine may be slow. As she plods along, she can take her time, looking for tasty leaves and bark, or munching on acorns. She doesn't have much to worry about. That's because she's packing 30,000 piercing quills. But hold on, those white things aren't quills. They're just extra long hairs, decoys to make her look even more spiky. Real quills are underneath. They're white too, but usually hidden under that dark fur. Most animals learn Do not mess with porcupines. A porcupine normally keeps its quills flat against its body, but when threatened, it bristles, showing off an area on its backside where the quills are the densest, called the rosette. And it stinks. The quills are coated in a waxy grease that puts off a pungent, musky smell unique to porcupines that says back off. But if that's not enough, she uses her tail to slap anyone who gets too close. Watch this. She didn't shoot her quills out. That's a myth. The quills don't release easily unless they hit something and get pushed in first. They're super sharp, sharper than this hypodermic needle. And check this out. The tip is covered in microscopic, backward-facing barbs. When you try to remove it, the barbs fan out, keeping the quill lodged in. Youch! If you get a bunch in an unlucky spot like your mouth, that makes it hard to, live. But even though they're super painful, getting stuck with a quill doesn't usually lead to infection. The quill's grease acts like a natural antibiotic, inhibiting the growth of some dangerous bacteria. Maybe it's because porcupines are actually pretty clumsy. They've been known to accidentally quill themselves, falling out of a tree maybe. Researchers at Harvard are now looking at these quills for inspiration. Surgical staples that doctors use to close wounds curve in under the flesh to stay put. That causes damage on the way in and leaves room for bacteria to take hold. So what about a staple with barbs, like a porcupine quill? It could make a smaller wound and stay put without curving. That could keep infection out and speed up healing time. Then it just dissolves. Pretty sharp, right? That's something about this spiky little fuzzball that anyone could love.
All right, so I saw in the comments someone said ew, which is funny because most of the Deep Look episodes are actually on more disgusting to some people things. I think they're cool, lots of bugs. And one of the discussions that I didn't show you today is on face mites, which you can explore on your own. So as you watched, feel free to respond to any of these questions really in the chat. Not so interested in face mites, yes. How does or doesn't this relate to your class content? What types of supports might you want to have your students have for your students as they watch this type of video to allow them to process the info? And then what would you want your students to do after watching something like this? Yeah, maybe a nice question that Sean puts in here is how do we make surgery safer after we study this animal? Giving that challenge to your students. I saw somebody mention earlier about biomimicry, so maybe bringing that concept into instruction. Other ideas for any of, sorry, there it go away. Any of these three questions? I'll give people another half a minute or so to think a little bit about how you might or might not want to use something like this in your classroom. I like that idea, Tara. Research additional inventions that might have, been inspired by animals, or maybe come up with our own. Christy says, ask students what defense systems they or their families or their friends use. Maybe you'll even give students materials to build a quill-like object and then consider uses for it, or maybe they go around their home and try to find materials there. Other applications and uses. Awesome, Jessica. Cool. So there are lots of different ways you might want to use this type of video. I want to show you one place you can go to actually use this directly with students, which is on KQED Learn. The slide, you all have a reference to the slides. I have everything kind of circled here, but I'm going to go to the live site right now. Hopefully this goes smoothly. If you go here to KQED Learn, I'm logged in right now, hopefully. So I will be able to show you student responses. But if you go there yourself, it's just learn.kqed.org. I'll put it in the chat. You won't be able to see student responses until you create an account. So you'll notice that we have a lot of deep look episodes that are now on KQED Learn. There's a collection of 5 of them. One of them, I don't know if you're coronavirused out, but there is one on the coronavirus, which is really cool just to look at up close. You'll see the Porcupines episode is here. I'm just going to click into it. And when you get to it, you'll see that the video is embedded up top. There's a glossary of terms that they're tiered to vocabulary, words, and context. There's a video transcript. For the deep look episodes, currently the transcript is only available in English, but for our other content, it's available in Spanish as well. There's a button if you use Google Classroom to add it there, as well as a lesson plan, which you can download. In the lesson plan, there's a lot of resources for teachers, but there's also a classroom viewing guide for students. And what's nice about this is that it is a Google Doc that you can just make a copy of, and your students can type right into the classroom viewing guide. So you can edit this. Let's say you want to do a different quick write. Maybe your students are, seniors in high school and you want them to maybe think a little deeper. If you're using a tool like Edpuzzle, you can program these questions into the video to check for comprehension at different points in the video. And then there's just kind of a note catcher for students to develop their thoughts before they post their evidence-based argument writing on the site. So we give them a place to kind of build their claim and evidence and reasoning here. And all of that is meant so that students are prepared to be able to craft their responses on the site. So you'll see here that there's a place for students to post their responses. They can just kind of type in here. I'm not going to be able to comment here because I'm a teacher. I'm registered as a teacher, and teachers can't actually post. They can only monitor their students on the site. And in addition to all those resources that I showed you for the specific discussion, there are also more general resources around for all discussions. So if your students, you want to build their writing skills, there's a model response that students can look at that kind of highlights the claim, evidence, and reasoning. There are sentence frames, there's a rubric. So all of those things can help you build discussions into your classrooms as you begin the year, maybe remotely. So I'm gonna go back to the presentation. I've highlighted all those things here, as well as I should point out that there's also a place where, I'll do that on the live site. On the discussion, I saw somebody mention that you would have maybe your students do additional research. If you do, and they do cite sources, you can have them add citations, and then they will come up here. So we'll have the KQED citations that our journalists use to create the video, which is a nice way to model what reliable verified information is. And then you can have your students also post their own citations. And students, in addition to a written response, can also create a media response. Awesome, Barbara. I saw that you used the one on the coronavirus and the students enjoyed it. That's amazing. And if your students, you're ready for them to go to the next level and kind of flex their media making muscles, you can have them share images or a video or audio or a slideshow or even an interactive map. And what's nice is that in the lesson plan, you'll be be able to explore this on your own, there are prompts specifically around media making that give you and your students tools to use to create those things. So we're not just saying like, go make a video. It's like, go make a video. Here are some things that you might use. Here are some considerations you might make. So all of those kinds of supports are built into the lesson. And again, it's all pointed out in the slides here. So these are the general resources. Students can post text responses. One thing that's really nice is that there are students from all over the country on the site with many different perspectives. And this site encourages students to be in conversation maybe with people that they don't necessarily agree with, but in a kind of civil way. Students can post their own response or respond to another student. We're not going to read this whole response here, but definitely feel free to look through the student responses and just kind of get a sense for the interaction between students. So you can ask your students to respond to students within their class because we want to kind of build that community, but students can kind of go outside of their little bubble as well. And again, students can also post media responses. These are a few infographics from our zoos episode, which is Should Zoos Exist? And you can explore those as well. These are a few examples. And there are lots to choose from. If you scroll through the site, you'll notice that there are 23 like science related episodes, but all of the science specific ones are really more socio-scientific issues. They're kind of that interdisciplinary look at science and how it relates to societal applications of the science content. And all of them just demonstrate and encourage scientific and critical thinking skills. And so we're thinking a little bit about how to build routines into the classroom as we start the year remotely, and how can discussion be one of those routines. And what's nice about this variety of discussion topics is that this allows you to kind of build that routine, which can allow your students to be more efficient with their time. You want your students to spend time practicing their critical thinking skills, not on learning a whole bunch of different tools. So you also want your own life and your own assessment of their learning to be efficient, which can be daunting, especially in a remote environment. On KQED Learn, you'll see all of your students' responses in your dashboard. So anytime your student responds, you can go in and assess their response. We also have a model rubric that you can use for that. And then it also promotes student ownership of their learning. The more you build in those routines, the less you directed time there needs to be. And then it just provides a roadmap for students when like everything is uncertain. At least this one routine is kind of more regular in their day. A few different ways teachers have used KQED Learn discussions in their classrooms to build that regular discussion in the classroom. There's one teacher who just picks a new one or asks their students to pick a new one every Friday, and her students first post the draft in Google Classroom, and then she gives them a thumbs up, and then the students post on Learn. And when you add your students, like I said, you will be able to see all of your student responses in your dashboard. Another teacher asks his students to post a response to the prompt and then respond to one student from another school. So pushing those students out of their comfort zone and engaging with students from around the country. Another teacher uses this as a mini research project and kind of has her students build the skills through these discussions, those research skills, and then culminates in like a more intensive research project. Since each discussion shows the sources that our journalists use, she has her students do research using those vetted resources. And then another teacher really highlights that A in STEAM and has her students respond to the media making prompt for each discussion. Students still need to engage in argument from evidence that science and engineering practice, but they also get the opportunity to show their creativity. And we have lots of ways students can do that with minimum tools and equipment at home. Like we know students are not going to have like video cameras at home, but a lot of them will have access to a Chromebook or maybe a smartphone, for instance. I'm not going to go through the specifics here, but I wanted to give you some options for how to roll out Learn discussions both asynchronously and synchronously. So feel free to refer to those slides if you're thinking about doing this with your students and you just want somebody to kind of list out maybe what the steps are. So I'm curious to hear from you, and also whether, if you have any questions about just in general about KQED Learn, like how might you use these Learn discussions in your classroom? Would you even consider doing something like this? And then what kinds of supports might you need to incorporate this type of learning in your classroom? So general questions I'm happy to answer, and then also just curious to get your thoughts.
Thanks, Alana. And as people start adding, taking the time to either type their thoughts in the chat or request to share their screen, I did want to share a quick update. We have about 2 minutes left of the session, about 3 actually. And the organizers have told me that after this session is over, they're asking everyone to refresh their screens. They have enabled a new feature which will allow us to connect with one another more easily. It's called a people feature. And so if you refresh and after the session is over, you should see it on the right-hand corner, and it's something called a people feature, and you should be able to connect with one another. So,
cool. Thanks for that. I see Christy asks, does your platform provide links to other resources? So the links that are in there are the citations that are used to create the video. So there are some links in there, and then your students can also add citations for their evidence-based writing that will show up when you view the discussion. So there are links for each of the videos. Awesome. Yeah, it's totally, it makes sense to be nervous about a media project, but these are like super bite-sized. So hopefully it'll feel approachable for you. So Definite Edpuzzle is just a software that allows you to have a video and build in points of engagement for students, like questions. I don't work for Edpuzzle, but I've definitely used it as a teacher. So it's definitely something to play around with. But again, there are so many tools. So I just want to point you to one more thing that we have, which is KQED Teach, our professional learning site for teachers. If you are like, how am I supposed to support my students in making videos if I don't know how to make a video? Well, we got you covered. We have these courses. They are 100% free. We give you feedback on your work in a very kind and positive, uplifting way. And we hope you'll join us. These are the options for the courses. So definitely feel free to register at that link. And then please feel free to contact me. I love to answer any questions, but also hear your ideas. Just be a thought partner for you. And then if you have any student media, I always love to see what your students are up to and doing. So please feel free to reach out. And thanks so much for joining us. And feel free, I'll hang out for the next 10 minutes or so to just answer any questions that you may have right now. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Alana, for being here with us today. It is 10:30, so feel free to hang out with Alana if you have some more questions, or if you need a break, now's a good time to take that, stretch, review the agenda. You can head over to the expo hall and visit with some of the exhibitors who are eager to meet with you, and some are giving away some fun prizes. You can go to the networking area and meet someone new to have a quick chat, and don't forget to refresh your screen so that you can use the people feature to contact one another during this event. So thank you.
Sarah, you asked a question about creating videos as a teacher for your students. We've found that a lot of teachers in March started off by doing a lot of synchronous learning with their students, and found that a lot of students were not able to show up at the same time for a variety of reasons. And so lots of teachers were starting to create videos that their students can watch anytime. It takes a lot of time, and so it's not something you would do for a daily lesson, let's say. But if there is something that your students will need to come back to multiple times, and you kind of want to use it as a reference, then I think seeing your face and hearing your voice through video is really important for students. So rather than just finding a YouTube video on the topic, like creating one yourself, definitely kind of engages students a little more. Again, it does take time to produce a video. I'm not gonna just tell you that it's super quick and easy, but there are resources out there to help you be able to do that. Definitely check out KQED Teach. We have some courses on there, but really just play around with creating videos. Sometimes it's hard even for teachers to see themselves on screen. So just getting comfortable with that it's a whole thing. But definitely we've seen teachers say that students really respond to seeing and hearing the teacher through videos.